Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Dear students, we are here with lecture number 12 of the subjects Civil Engineering, Construction and Graphics. Our topic of today's lecture will be surface finishing, in particular to pointing. And here I am, Engineer Shad Muhammad, lecturer, Department of Civil Engineering, Comsats University, Islamabad, Sahiwal campus. Alright, in our previous lecture, lecture number 11, we studied something regarding surface finishing, specifically plastering. And our table of content was this is at Introduction to Surface Finishing. We studied what is surface finishing, what is surface finishes, and we also studied some technical terminologies regarding plastering, types of plastering. In types of plastering, we studied cement plastering, lime plastering, mud plastering, stucco plastering, and Mughal plastering. We also studied that a few of the plastering techniques are based on materials, and few of the plastering techniques are based on you can say that design, exterior design, which they are composed. And there are also other type of plastering available on websites, and modern different types of plastering, self-created plastering, invented by different, not invented, just designed by different designers or plasterers. Anyhow, we also discussed common defects in plastering. Okay. In today's lecture, we will study the same. We will continue the previous lecture, surface finishing regarding pointing. We will study surface finishes, finishing, pointing, what is the basic definitions of these things, and pointing purposes, pointing suitability, where these are suitable, and we will study almost 7 different types of pointing. This list is not extensive. There are few other type of pointings available. They are rare and very known by few people, and not commonly used. We will study flat or flush pointing, strut pointing, recessed pointing, V pointing, weather pointing, keyed or grooved pointing, tuck pointing. Let me clarify the situation like this, that pointings are based on the type of design which it makes. Means they are not based on material, they are based on the type of design which is created or which is finally created. Okay, surface finishing pointing. You can see that this is before and this is after, this is before and this is after. Before, pointing wall was looking like this, and it was not decorative, not aesthetically beautiful. You can see that brickwork has been done. Certainly there must be a binding material in between each bricks, and this is an arch, masonry arch, and you can see that there are gaps in between different bricks, and there is mortar available, but you must be knowing that when you are placing mortar in between different bricks, then there is externally there are some gaps left out, which you cannot fulfill by just doing the bonding of the masonry. Okay, to fulfill these gaps and to make this wall beautiful, we provide pointing. And you can see this is not plaster. Plaster is on overall whole wall, and irrespective of which type of material, that plaster is the covering material, and pointing is not the covering material. This is then filling material which is filled in between different bricks. You can see how beautifully now it looks. Okay, let me clarify one misconception. Is this that by this pointing, both surface finishing of any type, either it is pointing or plastering, they do not provide any strength features to your structure. They are just aesthetic components of the building. Yeah, that is another thing, that if you provide a mesh wire on before plastering, then that have some post disaster role by keeping the disintegrated components or disintegrated brickwork integrated. You can see that, how tuck pointing, what is tuck pointing? You will go through this tuck pointing type of this tuck pointing in lecture, and before pointing it was like this, and after pointing how beautiful it is arranged. And that by looking such walls you need not to plaster. All right, you can see stone masonry. Previous was brick masonry, now it is stone masonry. This is not plastering of the stone masonry, it is pointing. This is pointing. Just look at it. You can see that excessive amount of mortar is used in bonding of stone masonry and irregular due to irregular shape of the stone masonry. All right, here he is using a tool to have a pointing effect, to achieve his pointing effect. Some regular thickness. By using tools you can ensure that the thickness of the pointing layer is uniform. All right, surface finishing pointing. The final treatment with cement or lime mortar made to the joints of the masonry to provide neat appearance is termed as pointing. The final treatment with the cement or lime mortar means both materials can be used, cement as a binding agent in mortar or lime as a binding agent in mortar. Mortar by definition it means that any binding material with incorporated some filler. Binding material plus any filler is named as mortar. This binding material can be cement, or it can be a lime, or it can be surkhi or any pozzolanic material. Mortar made to the joints of the masonry to provide neat appearance is called pointing. The joints on the face of the stone or brick masonry are roughly filled in while the walls are being raised. This is the fundamental, that when you are raising the walls and you are filling the you are performing the brick bonding, then you are placing some mortar in between the bricks and stone or block masonry. Then they are not uniform, they are roughly filled, and they can never be uniformly filled or smoothly filled, that its exterior is looking smooth. They are afterwards neatly finished off to make them watertight. They can to make them watertight, then you have two procedures: either you do pointing or you do plastering. The joints thus finished gives a better appearance to surface and prevent rainwater from entering the interior of the masonry. For better appearance and to prevent the rain from entering the interior of the masonry. Let me clarify this thing, that prevention of the rainwater is highly dependent on absorption capacity of the moisture. I am stating moisture generically, not specifying that rainwater or humidity or in some monsoon areas. Prevention of rainwater is not physical prevention, it is prevention of moisture, absorption of moisture. Otherwise, physical prevention of rainwater is through providing some glasses or something like that. You are covering your building. Okay. Purpose of pointing, there are basically 2-3 purposes: to prevent the moisture and rainwater from entering the interior of masonry through joints and to make them durable. To prevent the moisture, one point, moisture include rainwater from entering the interior of the masonry through joints to make them more durable. You are sure if you are preventing moisture, then it will make your structure more durable, to improve the appearance of the structure. Okay, this prevention of the moisture is more suitable for stone masonry. Suitability of pointing. Pointing is preferred to plastering under the following conditions. Let's overview them. When a smooth and even surface is not essentially required. Okay, plastering is ignored when you don't need smooth or even surface, and you will prefer pointing. Where it is desirable to exhibit to view the natural beauty of the material. Bricks and stones used in construction. Alright, this is very interesting point. It means if you want your structure to be natural or to look natural, and you don't want to make it something artificial, then to exhibit the natural beauty or to maintain the natural beauty of the material, bricks or stones, then you can prefer pointing rather than plastering. When the workmanship is neat and good, okay, that is also necessary, that workmanship in pointing you need a lot of that process is slow and that need a lot of skilled workmanship. One another thing, that when you move to suburbs and peripheries of the towns and cities, then you can have a lot of big houses, but they are naturally located and they are in natural periphery, and there are properly maintained trees and natural beauty, so they prefer to be natural, so they prefer pointing. Okay, types of pointing. The selection of the particular type of pointing depends upon the types of bricks or stones used and the appearance required. Certainly, if you are using stone masonry, then you must prefer pointing. That's necessary, because when you are plastering the stone masonry, then if you have bigger stones, then that bonding of the mortar with the stone will not be enough, and that will not have some adhesive type of effects, although you provide artificial keys by some providing some artificial engravement in the stones, but that won't perform well. And appearance required. All right, I told you at the start of lecture that pointing, all the types of pointing are distinguished on the physical looks of the shape of the design or the design of the pointing. Just to look at this, that this is your mortar, and this is brick, and this is brick, and in between this square type of this is known as flush pointing, and this is strut pointing, and you can see that this is recessed pointing. These figures are taken from book, and they are labeled according to them. Anyhow, V pointing, V-shaped pointing. Surface finishing pointing. We were discussing types of pointing. In types of pointing, we have flat or flush pointing. In this pointing, mortar is pressed tightly and the joints are filled up and made flush with the face of wall. Mortar is pressed tightly. As we have discussed that in between two brick walls, the bonding material, which is mortar, cement mortar or lime mortar, which is provided, we cannot ensure that no matter how much technical workmanship is there, we cannot ensure that this mortar has extended outwards and it is uniform externally, so that brickwork and the joint is at one plane. So mortar is pressed tightly and joints are filled up. Mortar is pressed tightly externally and joint is filled up and flush with the face of the wall. Flush, by flushing it means that when rain occurs and inclined rain occurs, then or maybe you do not have any external chhajjas of your building or ventilation for rainwater, then you must provide some flushing type of mechanism for your brickwork, so that rain or moisture do not penetrate inside the building. This is simplest type of pointing. Yeah, it is simplest type of pointing in the sense that it is plain, No mechanical tools are utilized, no difficult or mechanical or specialized tools are utilized, and is provided extensively, and it is commonly used. It is economical, as less time is occupied in this job performance, and secondly, no special material is required, so it is economical and durable. Durable, it means that when with the passage of time, structure is durable, and this pointing is also durable. Durable in this regard that you will not see that disintegration of this pointing with the passage of time, because it requires less labor than all other pointings. This requirement of less labor is directly connected with economical rather than durable. Every economical structure or material cannot be ensured that it will be durable, and every durable material cannot be ensured that it is economical. So they do not have any relationship, economical and durable. Anyhow, this reason is linked with economical. It does not afford a lodging place for dust. Lodging, as we have discussed in our previous lecture, that lodging means it does not attract dust. Yeah. Second type of pointing is struck pointing. In this pointing, the face of the mortar joint, instead of keeping it vertical, the face of the mortar joint, this is the face of the mortar joint, instead of keeping it vertical like flat pointing, its upper side, this one, upper side is kept about 12 millimeter inside the face of the masonry, and 12 as compared to face of the masonry, 12 millimeter inside as compared to face of the masonry, and bottom is kept flush with the face of the wall. Bottom is exactly in plane with the face of the wall or face of the brick. This pointing has better effects of throwing rainwater. Yeah, as it has inclined surface, so even if water falls over it, it will directly pass through this inclined plane and will pour downwards. This is also known as ruled pointing. This struck pointing is also known as ruled pointing. This pointing is best in ordinary circumstances. Yeah, you can say it is best in or you cannot say it's best in ordinary. It is good in ordinary circumstances, normal circumstances. All right, this was struck pointing. Let's move towards next pointing, recessed pointing. In this pointing, the face of the mortar joint is pressed inside by means of suitable tools and is left vertical instead of being made inclined. Let's view this recessed pointing. Just look at this. This is mortar for bonding of the brickwork, and this is pointing, black. This is flat from front as flat pointing, but inside, with the help of tools, you have moved this inside, and this type of pointing is known as recessed pointing. Alright, this pointing is provided when face work of good textured bricks with good quality mortar is used. Good textured bricks means bricks of good quality, first class brickwork is used, and having sound bricks and smooth edges. When this type of bricks work is utilized, anyhow, you can look at this thing that if this edge of the brick wall is broken, then this will look awkward. All right, that's it. Fourth type of pointing is V pointing. This type of pointing is provided by forming a V-shaped groove. A V-shaped groove is formed inside the mortar of the joint with the help of special tools, steel or iron jointer. Steel or iron jointer is used. A V-shaped steel or iron jointer is used to form a V-shaped groove inside the mortar of the joint. This pointing is commonly recommended for brickwork in case of governmental buildings. I have never seen a word governmental in somewhere in any document, governmental buildings, building will be in a cover government building. Government is already a plural, government building. Yeah. Second thing is this, that you don't need steel or iron jointer because these are very hard materials. You can have a hardened plastic PVC jointer to form a V-shaped groove. And the picture you can see here over here, a V-shape pointing. Externally it is V, and it is not protruded outward, it is inside, and this is V pointing. All right. Fifth type of pointing is weather pointing. This is similar to V pointing. V pointing is having a V-shaped mortar joint in between brick wall, but in this case, instead of pressing a V-shaped groove inside, it is provided by forming a V-shaped projection outside the wall surface. Now it is totally opposite of the V pointing. V pointing is inside the wall, and weather pointing is external to the wall. This pointing is generally recommended for superior brickwork. You can see this weather pointing. All right, it is this one. This is weather pointing, V-shaped pointing but protruded outwards. Okay, durability of this type of pointing will be lower as compared to others, as this is having an external edge. So with the passage of time, due to weathering effects, this will break down due to extreme weathers, extreme summer or extreme rainfall, or if some impact loading occurs over this portion of the wall, then this weather pointing will break. Alright. Sixth type of pointing is keyed or grooved pointing. Keyed or grooved pointing. Grooved, key if you have some engravement inside your pointing, or groove means also engravement inside the pointing. In this case, the joints are first filled up flush. First you have flush or flat pointing, and then before the mortar is hardened, you have a circular piece of steel or iron is pressed in and rubbed in the middle of the joint. There is a joint in between two brick walls, and brick walls, not two bricks, and that you have first flat pointing, and before it is hardened, with the help of tools, you can create a key or groove pointing. Groove pointing has big grooves in the face of key, then keyed pointing. Groove pointing, it is comparing these two keyed pointing and groove pointing. We should have separated them as keyed pointing, and seventh pointing type of pointing should have been groove pointing. The difference between keyed and groove pointing is this, that in keyed pointing the groove is smaller, and in groove pointing the groove is larger in size. Larger do not require size, because larger by itself is showing the size. So larger in size is a recessive or redundant word. Anyhow, one should not speak redundant words so frequently. Keyed pointing gives an attractive appearance to the structure and is generally used for superior works. Yeah, it have an attractive appearance and superior works. Let's see. This is keyed pointing. Small U-shape engravement have been created, and this is groove pointing. A rectangular U-shaped groove has been created, and it is deep. This groove is deep. All right. This is tuck pointing, having a groove and line putty has been placed. Let's discuss this. Tuck pointing. In this pointing, mortar joints are filled with the face of the wall. Okay, mortar joints are filled with the face of the wall as flat pointing, then 6 millimeter wide and 3 millimeter deep groove is immediately and carefully formed in the center of the joint, and groove is filled with or tucked in with white lime putty. A groove sorry. First a groove First, a groove is a flat pointing is formed, and then with the help of equipment tools, you have a groove. You form a groove, and then later on, the third step is this, that you tuck it with lime putty. Lime putty is given the maximum projection of 6 millimeter. Maximum projection that is allowed is 6 millimeter. Otherwise, it will not be acceptable or recommended. Tuck pointing has a neat, attractive appearance. Yeah, it is neat and attractive. Pointing by itself is used for attractive and appearance purposes. As I've discussed at the start of lecture, that pointing does not have any benefit in strength of the masonry. But the lime putty is not durable and in due course of time becomes defective. Lime putty is calcium oxide. Of formation of calcium oxide with water is not durable. Certainly it is not durable with the passage of time, rainfalls and weathering effects. This lime is not so durable. Anyhow, if you use cement putty, that will also be not durable. One thing is this, that you do not have good bonding with this groove pointing. Second thing is this, that second weakness is this, that it is protruded outwards. So another defect. So these are different type of pointings. Few of them we have discussed and few are we have not discussed. You can see its shape by seeing its picture. Literature is having many other type of pointings. You can see flush pointing, straight, flat pointing, double struck pointing. Here it is double strike. Sorry. Overhead struck pointing. Above in front it is having flat pointing, and below it is 6 millimeter inside. Ruled pointing or keyed pointing, you can say ruled and keyed pointing. And weather struck pointing, struck is at the upper side, and keyed pointing, this you can see groove pointing. In our literature we have said it grooved and it is ruled. This is just to see it concave pointing, V pointing, weather pointing, bedded pointing, extruded pointing, an extrusion has been made. Grappevine pointing, this is struck pointing, racked pointing, and flush pointing. As we have discussed, that pointing is an aesthetic aspect of your building, and architects are more interested in these pointing phenomena. But anyhow, a site engineer must be, as this subject concerns a lot to site works, so site engineer must be aware how pointing is placed and what are the nomenclature of different pointing types of pointings and technical terminologies used in workmanship by the workmen. So you should be aware about different types of pointing. If you remember its picture, then you can write the theory by your own self. Suitability purpose, a small lecture indeed, not so important, but you should be aware about different points incorporated in this lecture. Alright, thank you for listening. If you have any query, you can ask on online portal, and that
Tim is a master plasterer and can work simultaneously with 2 floats, and it's Charlie's living room that we're going to renovate.
Here's a clock, we've got 7 minutes, here's the ceiling. This ceiling will be done by this cat here.
Right, so you're saying by 2 o'clock?
By 2 o'clock.
Okay. And
that's if basically if I've got Tim here to help me get lots of water and I can boss him about a bit. But what will probably happen, it'll be about there. Basically, the ceiling will take about 2 hours. This ceiling will take 2 hours from mixing. Then we'll probably go on to, whilst I'm doing that, Tim will probably be doing his angle beads. No, in fact, I'll be doing them. Tim will be doing something else. We'll probably go straight onto that wall, get that out of the way. In the meantime, while that's setting, starting to go off, we'll put angle beads on here. We'll level this up with bonding. When that goes, I don't think we've got any. Oh, we've got some cement. Great.
So I've put the scrim tape on. I've put two layers on because some of the gaps are quite big.
We're just sheeting out to save us time at the end of the day.
Meanwhile, Charlie's been filling up the buckets. We've got 9 bags of multi-finish plaster and 2 of bonding coat.
Now, as we're doing the ceiling, it wants to be quiet, not too wet. We're doing walls wetter, ceiling's a little bit stiffer, so that's probably about right. And especially when you get to places like that, if that was the first coat, you'd really want to be like levelling that out because the second coat is really difficult. The second coat should be really thin.
Okay.
See what I mean? But it's really good when you go.
Okay, so we've used 1 bag of plaster, and we've done the. Would you call that the base coat, Tim, or the first coat?
Yeah, base coat.
The base coat covered half the ceiling. Meanwhile, Tim has mixed up another bag of plaster.
They put it all up and then just go whoosh, and there it was, perfect.
Because all the volume of this one is going to kind of smoothen it out a bit. So it's really helped it. But it's got more work to do.
Charlie?
Oh well, you know, I'm just here to provide fire cover should the water buckets catch light. Sorry?
Still looks like the colours. Before I saw it with the wallpaper. That looked interesting.
Okay, we've got the third bag, 2 bags up there, quite thick. The third bag's going to be a bit thinner to spread the lot, so it's going to be half the thickness. Which is great, you just wear a t-shirt, people think that you're working. Bit delayed on the ceiling, now we're doing angle beads. We're going to bond out the gingerbreads because they usually move, make it a little bit more perpendicular. So when you put shelves in, they look nice. Angle beads on, put them on just before the pizza, and we're going to bond afterwards.
You might know whether you want to have that on the film because it's not so. It doesn't look so delicious.
Well, it smells really nice.
It smells brilliant.
Okay. This will, where we go, what time is it? 6 o'clock. We're running about 3 hours late. We've got this wall we're going to do next. While we're bonding the sets, which is going off on the chimney breast wall. So hopefully, and Tim's done this wall very expertly, so that's really helped.
Should we say work in progress for that one?
Work in progress. So basically, that's really speeding things up. So if we knock this one out next, hopefully we'll have enough to go onto that one. I don't know about the front one, but I'd love to get the front one done. But we've got 5 bags left, which means we've got a little bit sparing.
Great. Well, the time is now 7:20. Tim has been busy kind of doing everything else. I got to do this wall here, which is I guess in the scheme of things, I've probably done about 12 walls in my life. It took me a lot longer than it would have taken Tim to do it, but it's pretty flat. It's Well, are you happy with it, Charlie?
Absolutely. I'm going to play billiards on it in a minute.
Great, then that's good enough for me.
Well, just to show you, this is really a community project. Look, this is Eileen down the road has made this for the three of us, and we're going to have some now. Good old Eileen.
What's wrong with it? Very well.
Very nice.
Incredible. Moist.
I think I prefer it like that to having it straight.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd just like to say that I'm absolutely delighted that so much has been done. I would have been perfectly happy just to have a ceiling done, but to have a whole room done is... I've lived in this place for over 20 years in this... I wish you'd seen it before I started! 20 years ago. It's really nice. Thank you very much.
No worries, Charlie. It's fine. Enjoy it. I've not finished yet though, Tim.
Oh?
Yeah, it's right. He thinks it's all done. Timmy's got another hour on that wall.
Well, 10 hours on, the ceiling's done, and the walls are done.
I'm naked, but I feel I've not got the right to be naked.
Tim, anything you'd like to say as you kind of zoom backwards and forwards?
It's nearly Sunday.
Myself, Tim and Charlie are about to call it a day.
It's a day.
It's a day.
It's a day.
No.
Hello there, folks. Kirk here, Kirk Giordano Plastering. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to do a scratch and brown same day system on this house because I want to color coat this next week. And so with this particular material, we're going to do scratch and brown and color in the day, but we don't want to do that. We're just going to scratch and brown it. I want to show you a few things. Great lath job. First of all, we did it. Over here, we point out a couple little minor things that are kind of important. We got a soffit mesh going into a wall that this wall is not broken out. Well, we don't need to break it out. That blue stuff is called weldcrete. It's all the way around the perimeters where we don't have wire tie-in. So we don't get no hairline cracks there when this all sets. We're going to go ahead and scratch the entire thing, and when we're done with scratching the entire thing, we're going to start browning these. Alright guys, second coat, fat and ugly. I'm going to derby it. That means I'm going to take a rod to it, a feather edge, a rod, a T-bar, depending on whatever country you're in. Australia, they keep calling them T-bars or straight edges. Once we put the second coat, I'll show you how we work that. Alright, for my buddy in Australia, the land down under, they use a T-square. It's just like this, except it has one flat edge. It looks just like a T. Here in the States, California, we're familiar with this. This is a straight edge, a feather edge, a rod. And when I work union, it'd be one guy on one level, me on the other level, and we take a 10 or 30 foot rod and we'd rod walls, banks, specifically where they're going to put imitation tile on. And that wall had to be true and plumb within 1/8 of an inch or we get yelled at. Anyhow, they said they use, my buddy was emailing me saying, man, all we use in Australia are the straight edges. I thought, man, you guys are good because these are hard to use. This is how we used to do union jump. You take it and you go here and you pull it up and you keep doing that, man, it takes forever. Here's what we do over here. Now these are more popular all over US, Mexico, and they got some good plasters there. You take this Darby, you can call it a straight edge or rod, you grab this guy right here. You come up and feather into it. You just put the excess where you need it. Take your leg, put your elbow back here, come up. This is the second coat, making it true and plumb. When I worked union, I worked behind a pump, and I would do this 8 hours a day, every day. And we'd do about 7 to 8 houses a day, just with the scratch coat or the brown. As well, I worked for Danny Smith Plastering. Fred Smith, he's still working today. He's one fellow who taught me more than anybody. Fred Smith, man, he's an excellent plasterer. Worked for Danny Smith Plastering still. Or actually, they call it another name, but he showed me all these techniques years and years ago. Come by and say, hey bro, you're killing yourself. Put it right here and do this. Okay guys, now what we're doing is hard rubber floating. This takes a lot of elbow grease. What we're basically doing is like pushing this in. It's the same day material, so I'm pushing it in hard, real hard. A lot of strength, and you just push it in tight. And when I get done, remove all these windows, and I could tell Dan was here. He's my youngin'. He's covered these windows. I generally put a piece because it's a real windy day. It's kind of stopped now, but that KG I know stands for me, and he's always messing with me. And we got a good sense of humor. Anyway, we're gonna hard rubber float everything. They're gonna hose it down. Most materials, I tell the homeowner, hose it down for 3 days. This particular material, we hose it down same day. All right, guys, we are all hungry. We got food over here waiting for us, but this particular product doesn't wait for anybody. This is rapid set, man. It doesn't wait for anybody. So we're pushing in hard, going back, going over everything. In about 15 more minutes, we're gonna have it. Then we're all gonna take lunch. You really got to use a lot of elbow grease with this and hit it while, right now it's real hard. If I wait another half hour, I won't have enough muscle to push in. So when you're using this particular product, you need a certification and you better know what you're doing. Okay guys, we're all set now. Our sprinkler heads are all clean, so there's no stucco in there. Of course, the down spouts where they go in here, we had it plugged. We wash it out anyhow. Cleaned all the plants, cleaned everything. You can never be too clean, and we always have a motto: leave it cleaner than you found it. You ever been yelled at for leaving a job too clean? Me neither. But I've been yelled at for other things. Anyhow, this wall is all floated out. This wall's all floated out. We've been, because of this particular product, asked you to hose it down, including the roof up there. I've been hitting it with water occasionally. If it was real hot, I would have hit it many, many more times. But that's this particular product. It requires you hose it down. Hose it down. So, come on in here, Jay, if you can. We've got a beautiful oak door there. Hey, with a piece of red tape still on it. We're going to get that off. Up here, the same thing. We got to hose this particular stuff down, which is not a big deal. Come around here and I'll show you the last piece. Good job, Dan. Good job. How's it going, buddy? I'll take it from here. Throw that float. We'll clean it up. Beautiful, Dan. Beautiful. We'll just put the final touches on it. Hit that a little bit with water. Hydrate it. Hydrate it. Most traditional systems, you don't have to hydrate till the next day. Anyhow, another job well done. My name is Kirk. I am with Kirk J. O'Donnell Plastering.